Hello and welcome to Career Stories, the podcast that shares other people's career stories to help you with yours. I'm Dr. Luella Forbes, and each week I sit down with leaders, experts and entrepreneurs to uncover the stories behind their careers. At the end of each month, I'm joined by Associate Professor Michelle Gander to explore how those conversations might help you on your career journey. Listen every Wednesday for the latest career story. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this monthly career advice episode of Career Stories. I'm here with Michelle Gander.
Hello, everybody.
And this is the first one of these career advice monthly episodes that we've done. So I'm excited for Michelle and I. I feel like Michelle and I have been talking about this for, I don't know, close to 6 months now. And so to actually get to have this conversation is really exciting.
It's very exciting.
It's something actually kind of coming to life. We're going to talk about the two guests that we've covered in this month's episode. I've asked Michelle to have a think about kind of what might be some insights that we could take from the episode. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about purpose this week. We have a listener question. And then we are going to do a monthly book recommendation. So that's the agenda. The agenda? So it's like formal. A meeting. Yeah. That's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start with the reaction to the podcast this month. Thank you so much for everybody who's dropped a message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or people who've known me, sent me a message or an email. It's been really great to hear that people have listened and enjoyed the conversations that we've shared with Maddie and Kelly so far. I'm really excited about it. How's it been from your perspective?
It's been great, actually. And I mean, two really interesting people and interesting careers for both of them. So it's great that this is actually like hit the streets.
Yeah,
as it were.
It's hit the streets. Yeah. So this month we have Maddie Langrudi. So Maddie is a public servant who works in Western Australia. We have Kelly Shea, who works for a super fund in Victoria. So quite different, kind of quite contrasting. And I tried deliberately to, as I've been thinking about which guests we do in which order, I've been trying to think about how do we kind of contrast different stories and experiences across the two, but I thought they actually had a surprising amount in common.
Yeah, very surprising, considering that, when we listen to Medi, you do wonder how interesting traffic management is going to be. But I was actually really engaged through that whole interview with Medi. He seems a, lovely human being, and just made the whole discussion around his actual job just really interesting.
And I would say that the podcasts, the interviews are not always coming out in the order that I've recorded them in, but Medi was the very first one that I recorded, and he was such a lovely first guest and so kind of calm and considered and thoughtful, and I thought quite funny as well. So,
yes, absolutely. And also just to say well done on your very first interview. It was,
so big thank you to Medi for that. The one bit I just wanted to add is a couple of people have said to me, Medi doesn't sound Scottish, because he talks about how he went to school in Scotland. Just to be clear, Medi is not Scottish. Medi is from Iran and moved to the UK for school, I think. Right, yeah. So that didn't come out in the course of the interview, but I just thought that was worth adding in. And then Kelly, such an interesting career as a union organiser. Yeah. And as somebody who works in organisational change a lot, I think people are sometimes scared of the unions and what they might mean and how they're going to stop people doing stuff in the workplace. And actually the thing that I thought Kelly explained really well about how it's actually about respecting people for the work that they're doing and making sure they get paid for it.
Absolutely. And I think, so Kelly did mention at the very beginning of her interview that she once wanted to be PM, and I just wanted to do a shout out to Kelly to say, I'd vote for you if you want to stand for, well, not for PM, but,
I would vote for her too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point, having, worked in leadership roles where, I've done restructures and, all of that, and having to engage with our union The reason they're important, if you think back to when organised labour first kind of became a thing, was because we were literally sending children up chimneys, right? So, and
exactly.
people were working, 18-hour days with hardly any pay. And so people have strong opinions, I think, about unions nowadays, but I think we need to remember that, without them, we would not have any semblance of work-life balance.
Well, and also, in Australia, because obviously we're talking about people who've worked internationally, I think people don't maybe realise how lucky we have it in Australia with things like minimum wage, and things like minimum wage would not have come about if it wasn't for unions.
That's right, absolutely. And actually, a pretty livable minimum wage.
Yeah.
If you compare us to lots of other countries.
Definitely. Yeah. So before we go into this week's topic, Michelle, we've got a very important thing that we need to say on behalf of your employer.
Oh, we do. I have to say that all of the opinions that I'm about to hold forth are my own and not necessarily a reflection of the opinions of Murdoch University.
And I'm sure that that's the same for all of our guests, that their opinions are their own and not those of their employers. In talking about kind of preparing for this conversation, we talked about, what might be the kind of theme that we wanted to talk about this month. And what we picked was purpose.
It was.
Do you want to talk a little bit about purpose? And I think connected, Mehdi used the word impact a lot.
He did, yeah.
So that's the topic that we're going to talk about today. Do you want to
I'll
start and then
kick off and see where we get to? So I think it was really interesting that, as you say, although Mehdi used the word impact, and probably being an engineer, he thinks about that outcome focus. So I think that's where his kind of focus on impact was, kind of seeing that. Whereas Kelly very much talked about that broader purpose. I think that was where she was coming from. But I think if you listen to what Mehdi was saying, it was very much purpose driven. I think his work, his passion. I know he kind of said he kind of ended up in engineering.
It was an accident.
It was an accident. I'm sure many people have careers that are accidents, and mine included.
Yeah.
So I think and he'd wanted to have a career with purpose before that. So I can see how that all kind of works together, which is clearly why he works in the public sector, right? And as he actually mentioned, he could earn a lot more money if he worked out in the private sector, but chooses not to do that. So purpose is, we don't really talk about purpose like when you talk about academic theories and such like, so much as we talk about motivation, meaningful work, pro-social behaviour, all of that type of thing. So, but it's really, I think when we talk about it, if we're talking about our jobs and our careers, absolutely we talk about the purpose that we want and or need.
Yeah, so this is probably something that we'll come across a few times when we're doing this, where the kind of academic terms don't really connect up quite with the kind of accepted business terms and kind of business language and the type of thing that you might read in Harvard Business Review, for example, doesn't quite connect up with the academic terms. So from an academic perspective, there isn't really much research on purpose using that word.
But
there is research on pro-social behaviour. So that
absolutely.
What we mean by that is things that we are doing for other people.
Yeah. So there's kind of many types of motivation. And so if we think about Mehdi and the fact that he works for the public service, there's actually something called public sector motivation, which is really around wanting, appreciating and wanting to contribute to the strength of our institutional organisation. So being really clear that there's value in our institutions. And a lot of what we're seeing in the news from overseas and here, I guess, as well, is about that erosion of trust in our public institutions. But if we think about all the public sector workers, they are there doing those roles because they actually want to support and strengthen those institutions. Another type of motivation that links closely to that is called pro-social motivation. And that's much more about wanting to see the direct benefit of your work. So again, that really talks to both Mehdi and Kelly. They talk about that, to use Mehdi's term, the impact of directly of their work, and also that pro-social impact motivation around being able to contribute to something bigger than yourself as well. And then you've got kind of intrinsic motivation, which is very much around what you get from your job, the enjoyment aspect of your job. So there's kind of lots of different types of motivation that work together. And they're not there's some overlap between those types of motivation.
I know that when earlier in my career I worked for an organisation that was quite invested in trying to understand and connect people to purpose, and we spent quite a lot of time trying to figure out, trying to write down what your purpose was. And we definitely took more of that kind of intrinsic motivation perspective. And so what we were talking about is, what lights you up when you come to work? What is it that when you go, do you know, I'm going to get to do this today, that you get excited about? What is the thing about it that makes that exciting? So the thing, it will be unsurprising to you, knowing what we're doing here, that one of the things that is really close for my purpose is around watching people grow, helping people learn, making their working life better. And actually, when I left my last kind of corporate job, one of the big questions I asked myself was about purpose, because I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I actually spent quite a bit of time thinking about what are the things that I really care about and really I just enjoy doing more than anything. So it actually doesn't matter, how much money I earn because I get to do that every day. That was kind of my thinking. Do you think about purpose at all?
It's interesting. I just kind of want to link back to this idea of meaningful work as well. So for me, I think it's around, so meaningful work is like you create meaning within the work. So we all have different needs from our jobs and different values that we bring to our jobs. But meaningfulness is co-created between an organisation and its employees. And it's usually people, again, meaningful work is often thought of as a contemporary career need of new generations coming through the workplace. So from millennials kind of down, if you look at the different kind of contemporary career literature, it's very much around the need for meaningful work. And what that means to individuals, of course, is different. So from my perspective, meaningful work is around that greater impact that I might have, and that very much is what drives me again, which is why I'm doing this, because you want to help other people, and that's why I work in a university, right? So I think we mentioned before, I kind of started my life in the private sector and really found that it wasn't for me. And found my values alignment, I suppose, working in universities in lots of different type of roles that I've had.
I think that the point you made though about younger people coming into the workplace, and their desire for meaning, and I've seen a little bit of commentary about this, that actually what's happening is that generation have watched their parents' generation who were kind of coming of age in the 80s and, have watched them work really, really hard and have watched them struggle to have work-life balance and have watched what happens if you kind of just in the job and you're not connected to it. And actually they're kind of going, well, we've seen what that does and we don't really want that. And actually we'd love something that's connected. But I don't think it doesn't only apply to that generation. I think there's lots of opportunity for people who are maybe mid-career or midlife to also think about purpose. And I see a lot of my kind of peer group who have reached the top of their career in their current organisation who are now going, okay, well, I've done this for a bit and I've been on the corporate treadmill. Where can I find something that's going to add a bit more meaning to my life and be a bit kind of less worried about the promotion cycle?
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? You know, when you start your career, you're not on probably maybe you're a graduate, maybe you're not, but your salary is fine, but it's not that great. You're trying to make your way in the world as an independent adult. I remember, you know, the first
quite idealistic.
Trying to, you know, move out of home and establish yourself and all of that type of thing. And so, yes, of course, things like salary is really important, and trying to get a promotion becomes important if you work within an organisation, or that contract with the economy, I suppose, that if you got a job and worked hard and kept your head down, that you would earn enough money to buy a house and have kids and do all the things that, you know, actually governments tell us they want us to do. But if that becomes harder and harder, then if you can't actually achieve that, then, you know, what else is there?
Why wouldn't you go for the ideal?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So there's a double, you know, if you can't do that, then at least you want to do something with impact. And actually, because many things are broken in our economy and our environment, you want to contribute to the change. So it's not a surprise that when you get to midlife, and we often talk about midlife crises, there is that ability to stand back. You're probably on the housing ladder, you've probably been paying into your super, you might have some investments, like whatever it might be. It allows you that little bit of going, oh, do I want to continue to chase this job or this dream that I once had? Or actually do I like to step back and question what's really important? So like I'd always thought I was going to be chief operating officer, right? That was the goal that I had from quite early on in my career, chief operating of a university.
Yeah.
That nonetheless is a, you know, huge business in and of itself.
Yeah.
I got quite close to that. I got offered an executive director of operations role, which was like really the step below coup. And at that point I was like, do I want that? You know, do I want to be the person that gets called 24/7 when something happens and that I've got to fix that? Mm-hmm. Or do I want to do something else? I chose the something else route.
Yeah.
But it's funny how it took me till my early 50s to actually midlife, literally, yes, hopefully midlife, to kind of go, oh, I'm gonna stop chasing that now. There's other things that I think are important and I want to do, and what am I good at? As you say, like what am I good at as well? Because that contributes quite a lot to how you feel about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there are people listening who are kind of going, I don't know if I'm connected to my purpose. What is my purpose? How do I find out my purpose? All of those kind of things. What can we tell them?
Well, there's actually, I mean, and this is what I give my students actually, quizzes that you can take that help you kind of work through that, and we can put some links in the show notes. But fundamentally, it's a reflective process. That alignment with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And I know it's easy for some people and harder for others, but it's also about being really honest with yourself and asking yourself those hard questions.
What we're talking about is the things that matter to them.
Yeah.
So it's the things that they care about, are excited about, are energized by. The exercise that the first time I did this when I was probably 10 years ago, the exercise that we did was think about kind of what was the last day when we had a really great time at work, and what were we doing and why was it that we enjoyed it. And like you said, I think we'll put some links in the show notes. Simon Sinek, he has spent quite a lot of time focusing on purpose, and he's got a book called The Power of Why, which has got some really good, I think it's called The Power of Why. I might have got the title wrong. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But it's got some really good tools or exercises if people want to find their purpose. And then the bit that I thought I could add, because purpose has been a topic that's quite interesting to me. And I actually did an ebook on purpose about a year ago, because I wanted to go and find out some more. And so I was like, how do I make this?
So where's that available from?
Clearer. I'll put that in the show notes too. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. But I went and looked at the evidence and kind of actually looked at the statistics and some of the benefits. Now, you mentioned a range of different terms. I specifically was looking at an intrinsic motivation, which is your kind of internal motivation as opposed to external motivation, which might be about pay or promotion or status or something like that. Intrinsic motivation is about kind of how you feel about things, which I've used as a proxy for purpose. So if you have high intrinsic motivation, you're 50% less likely to burn out. Noting that we had this conversation the other day, noting that there are some people who become a bit obsessive about it and feel so much that they want to give back that they actually also put themselves at risk. So it's not a straight line that says
it's not a straight line
equals no burnout. It's less likely to.
And I think that's also more likely if you're very highly pro-socially motivated, because in a lot of times, if you have high pro-social needs, you're probably working like in the public sector or a charity or health. Yeah, exactly. Like probably not. Well, I would say that, but I was going to say not corporate, but that's not necessarily true. But people that have high pro-social needs are attracted to those areas. And what happens there is
the work. Everyone.
Yeah, they want to help everyone, but also the work is never done. So if you think, you work in health or teaching or something, there is always more work. Like it's in a university sense as well. There's you can always improve the student experience. You can always do more research. You can
always help more people.
You can help more people.
Always raise more money in a charity. You can
that's right. So sometimes it's quite hard to put a boundary around your work.
Yeah. So it's not as straightforward, high purpose equals no burnout, but it is measurably less likely to, because you're enjoying what you do and you're connected to it.
That's right. Yeah.
Other things are people who've got high intrinsic motivation tend to have higher job satisfaction, higher levels of engagement, higher levels of commitment. And so if you're a leader, if you've got people in your team and you have been able to connect what they do for your job, whether it's a corporate job or not, you've been able to connect it to their kind of purpose, then you will have a team that will have higher job satisfaction, higher engagement, higher commitment. They are 54% likely to be more proactive, 86% less likely to have absenteeism, 76% less likely to be resistant to change. And those are all in the ebook that I talked about, and I've listed all the references in there. So if people are interested in finding where I got all of those specific numbers, then they can get them. And obviously that comes from research, which is always contextual and always, there's always pros and cons from it. But I think that shows you a pattern that is about the value that people get.
Absolutely. And I think, could we specifically say in a specific organisation that somebody would be 50% less likely to burn out? No, we couldn't. But the weight of evidence suggests that if a leader can really work towards supporting people's intrinsic motivation. So a lot of people get really obsessed about like the extrinsic rewards, like pay, for example. That's the big one. Yeah, the number of promotions you might be able to get. Spaces. So the benefits,
the desk that you sit at.
Yeah, have you got the one in the corner office, with the window and all of that? And so for leaders, it's of course, there's always pay and there's always we want an increment and we want all of those things. But motivation per se, to have that increased job satisfaction, which actually leads to increased productivity, like it really is around intrinsically motivating the workforce. Now, I'm generalising because for some people, extrinsic motivation is very, very
Is the way to
important.
go.
Is the way to go. And I'm sure if
hoping
you
that
work in
we'll
high finance, that's probably a
and I'm sure
motivator.
we'll have some guests who have that perspective at some point in the future. I think the thing I would say to make it kind of real for people, if you're, you talk about being in a corporate environment. In a corporate environment, if you had a team and somebody is really motivated by helping other people, then they might be the buddies that you help do onboarding and representing your department to other departments. That's the type of thing that we're talking about. So finding out what really motivates people.
And I think people, like if you're in a management position, actually connecting enough with each individual in your team, and it can be hard if you have a lot of people, but really getting to understand what motivates them. Because then you can put each person to, I mean, obviously we all have to work on projects and, all of that, but you can find.
You might still have to answer the phone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Do people answer the phone anymore? I don't know. But if you can find the thing that really excites that person. And actually I was working somewhere where like there's been this huge restructure and the team was kind of decimated and the people left behind kind of didn't want to be there. And, all of, as a change agent, I'm sure you can recognise that. But the person that was actually managing that team for me, she worked really hard to find out exactly kind of what motivated each member and then tried to get them, within the bigger job to give them that thing as well.
Projects are often the ways that you can do that. And then when you think about, so again, as a leader, if you're thinking about reward and recognition, then, you also might be able to reward people with projects that actually really are motivating to them. So when I was working in the public sector, it's hard because you can't give people extra money or buy them lunch or give them bonuses. But what you can do is give them opportunities. And so those are ways that as a leader, you can engage your team better and connect them.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a really interesting discussion about purpose. And we can see if we connect that back again to Medi and Kelly, we can see, Kelly's purpose in the union organising, but even now she's in a corporate environment that actually it's about making people's lives better.
Yeah. So I would say she's highly pro-socially motivated for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a bit on purpose. And as we said in the show notes, there's some information for you that will help you with that. We have a listener question.
It's so exciting.
We have a listener question. So if you have any questions from the interviews that we do, from this conversation, or just some comments, you can email them to us at stories@the-career-library.com, which is in the show notes. And we will pick a question every month to go through and talk about. So this month's question, I'm going to read it out. Loved listening to the first 2 pods, and I thought I'd reach out. After years of doing admin roles whilst raising my kids, a colleague recently encouraged me to apply for an exec director of a charity. It's totally aligned with my values, and I actually got the job. But now I'm in the role and thinking, how did this happen? What am I doing? Am I the right person for the job? I've never really had a career before, and suddenly I do. Imposter syndrome is very real. How do I convince myself I'm capable, even though everyone around me is already telling me I am? So thank you to our lovely listener for that question. Do you know, this sounded so familiar to me. So I would say, first off, congratulations.
Yes,
for
congratulations.
Going for a job that, was clearly a bit of a stretch, and, brilliant that you went for it, and congratulations that you got it. Do you ever feel imposter syndrome, Michelle?
I've had imposter syndrome throughout most of my career. I've moved around quite a lot, and I've usually gone up the promotion ladder when I've moved around. And every time I have imposter syndrome, I said to somebody the other day, if I actually believed in myself, I'd be dangerous. But it's not helpful. So there's somebody once said to me, imposter syndrome is because you care, but actually it can be quite hard to deal with, and can cause problems if you can't keep a handle on it. So I'm sure there's a whole episode that we could talk about imposter syndrome. Actually,
that, one of the things that I find really interesting is the difference between, I guess, imposter syndrome and just not being confident, because I don't think they're the same thing. And I think I see a lot of people kind of picking up imposter syndrome to mean I don't feel confident. And I think the two are slightly different, although
definitely
related. So yes, I'm sure we'll go back and talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
So I used to have imposter syndrome quite a lot, and then I have dropped it.
Yeah, I don't have it anymore either.
And I think there was a particular couple of things that I worked on during COVID times where I kind of really had to put myself out there, and it was kind of make or break time, and I made it. And not only did I make it, but I made it quite well.
Yeah.
And was pretty proud of myself. And I was like, do you know what? I can do this. Now, the reason that I call out the difference between imposter syndrome and lack of confidence is that doesn't always mean that I'm confident everything is going to go right. Yeah. And, I mentioned before being nervous doing the first episode of the podcast. And was I confident then that it was going to go right? Well, no, because I'd never done it before. And so, but that doesn't mean that I thought I couldn't. It just means that I was nervous and not confident
that's
about
right.
it. So
absolutely.
I think there is a nuance
around
that stuff.
Our listener should know that if she was interviewed for the job and got the job, they believe in her to do the job, and so she should not have imposter syndrome. She might not be confident in all aspects of the job right now, but that's why it's a good learning experience to do new things.
Yeah, and in the longer email from the listener, they talked about how it's actually quite a small organisation. I think there's only 4 or 5 people. And you were talking, I think you mentioned strengths earlier. I think one of the things that the listener can do is figure out which bits are the bits that they're maybe less confident about. So there'll be some bits where they go, well, I know how to do that. I know how to go and talk to somebody and explain stuff. I know, you mentioned that you've been in lots of admin jobs. That means that you're probably quite organised and you know how to kind of get things done. Yeah. So take those strengths and then look at the things that maybe you don't know how to do as well, or you're feeling less confident about, and figure out who can help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's 2 things. There's the actual, what do you need to get better at in that job? Like maybe it's finance, for example. And so then you need to concentrate on that. So all of us fall into, we want to spend time doing the things we're already really good at, and not spend time doing the hard things. And actually we need to flip that. And then, so finding somebody in your network, and that's why having, good networks is really important, that you can go to and ask for some advice and guidance, whether that's like a formal mentoring or it's just somebody that you can sit down and ask, to go through your P&L or whatever.
Or a friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a friend who's got a job.
One would hope.
Might have done some of that stuff before.
That's right.
And so then the other thing that I was thinking about is, as somebody who is essentially a small business owner, sometimes it can feel quite lonely, and you can feel a little bit like it's just you against the world. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I have realised over the last couple of years is actually that it's more like, it's still like I'm in a business. It's just that I'm in a network of little businesses. And so there's lots of other small business owners, and, one of them might be a marketing person who does my website, and another person might be an accountant, and that's my finance department. And so actually, if you kind of reframe how you think about kind of who your peers are, And, there'll be other charities that are, it's not a competition between charities. And so, are there peers who can also help, who may have a bit more experience? So I think, I don't think you're going to magic confidence out of nowhere. I don't think the imposter syndrome is going to go away quickly. But I think you can help it by figuring out what you're really good at.
Yeah.
And what you might need help with.
Yeah.
And then making sure that you've got support mechanisms in place for the things that you might need help with. That might be a friend, a mentor, a network buddy, a colleague, an outsourced provider, something that helps to address it.
I would say I would really recommend another CEO or executive director as a mentor. I think
somebody who's in a similar
role,
a bit further ahead.
Just because I think it's a big job to even though it's a small company, it's actually a really big job, right? And I'm sure you've got a small board of directors that you have to report to, and so just taking that on and being able to talk to somebody that's in a similar role, although a bit more experienced, is, I think, hugely helpful. And there's organisations that you can join that have got mentoring programs if you haven't got anybody as well. So,
and then probably the last thing I would say is just a reminder to remember that you've got here. Congratulations. You've done it. You've got the job.
Absolutely.
And, you can do it.
Yeah, and what I always say is as well, they've appointed you into that job, I assume the chair or whatever, and they really want you to succeed.
Yeah.
So it's,
nobody ever has a new starter and goes, I really hope they fail.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or what have we done? It's just...
they'll be really excited about having you, and they'll really want you to succeed.
Absolutely.
And I think that asking for help can be a sign of strength.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's knowing when you need to ask for help is actually a key skill in work and life.
Which you've done.
Yeah.
So congratulations, listener, on your role, and good luck. Let us know how you go. I'd love to hear back from you in 6 months about how well you're smashing it in your new role.
And hopefully the imposter syndrome will have gone away by then.
Hopefully. So the last thing for this week then, in each interview I ask listeners for recommendations on kind of books or podcasts. And so Medi talked about Feel Better, Live More, which is a podcast hosted by Rangan Chatterjee. I do think it's a really good all-round podcast to, think about how you are in your life.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I like it because he is a doctor, a GP, that, evidence-based. Like, he hasn't, there's been a whole social media flurry around some podcast, shall we say.
Yes.
But not his.
Kelly talked about a couple of the Brené Brown books. And so what we thought we'd do is, in this monthly episode, we'll do a book recommendation from our perspective as well. And the conversations that we were having is about a couple of things to think about when you're thinking about a podcast or book that you're looking at. Is just ask yourself where the information is coming from. So, who's the author? Yeah. What's their background? Yeah. Have they got significant experience in this space? Have they got a research interest in this space? What is the agenda that they might be bringing? What is the evidence that they're bringing? So I don't think somebody has to be a doctor.
No.
Says both of us with our academic qualifications, but somebody doesn't have to be a doctor to be an expert.
No.
But you have to be able to see evidence of where their claims, logic behind where their claims have come from.
Absolutely. And I think it's I'm in two minds, really, because social media and, being able to get your voice out there has been such a benefit to such a lot of people. But the negative side of that is that people that know nothing about a subject just flood the space and actually drown out more evidence-based voices. And that's because actually we have to spend a lot of time collecting that evidence and making sure it's robust, rather than just like, everything that I said today, it wasn't my opinion, right? It was a body of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got my experience that,
I think we both
can make that real. Yeah.
But we also go and read and go and ask questions and go and make sure that we understand. And, even though I had done this purpose ebook, Michelle was kind of like, well, actually the literature also says these things. So, we're challenging each other, I think, as well. So I think that's just as a comment to be mindful of when you're listening to something or watching something or reading something. Just be mindful of where they've got their information from. And so the book recommendation that I have for this month is actually on a similar theme to the Feel Better, Live More podcast. It's a book called Feel Good Productivity. The subtitle is How to Do More of What Matters to You. And I think, really connected in with our conversation today about purpose, and, thinking about how do you have a good time at work, which is something that's really very connected to my purpose. This book is really good. So Ali Abdaal, he was a doctor and he ended up getting really interested in productivity and how you could be more effective and happier at work. And so he's got a really approachable book that's got lots of his personal stories, but they're all backed up by evidence. He's referenced everything that he's used, and lots of the frameworks that he used are ones that I've come across in various different training courses or leadership programs or things, and they're kind of all in one place. So I think if you've been exposed to lots of leadership stuff, there's probably not a lot of new stuff in there, but if you haven't, it's a really good kind of compendium of lots of tips to help you have a good time at work.
Which is what we want, right? Because we spend
That's what we want.
Long time at work.
That's
and we should
point.
be enjoying it. And actually, I didn't know until a few days ago that was going to be Luella's book, and I've just ordered that book. So I've got it on my table. I haven't read it yet, so I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, I think he does a really good job of communicating some really kind of practical things that people can do. So if you're struggling at work at the moment, you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, it's called Feel Good Productivity. It focuses on productivity, but it's more than just how to run an efficient meeting. It's much more about how to have, how to do more of what matters to you, as he says. Yeah. So really recommend that.
Excellent.
And that's it for this month.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks to Medi and Kelly for sharing their stories.
It's been a great chat today.
It's been a good chat.
Thank you. So just a reminder, if you have any questions, our contact details are in the show notes. If you have any suggestions on amazing leaders that you think we should hear from, that would be fantastic. Contact us and let us know. And otherwise, I will see you next month, and you will see me next week with the first guest of March.
Great.
Fantastic. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe in your podcast app. It helps other people find us. And join me and Michelle Gander at the end of the month for our reflections on this conversation and the rest of this month's career stories. This podcast was produced on Noongar country. We acknowledge and respect the first storytellers of this land and the keepers of culture, and extend that respect to traditional owners and storytellers wherever you may be listening.